The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good evening, our viewers. We thank you again for joining us this evening. My name is Abdallah Latif, and here again with the Hotline Show. Well, it is the 19th day of December 2022, and we are left with a couple of days to get to the end of the year and, of course, switch to another year, that is 2023. Yes, yesterday the World Cup came to a closure after Argentina and France making it to the finals, and of course the Argentina team emerging victorious, being the champions of the World Cup 2022. And of course here so many things have been happening. We have started the week with very sad news. The Member of Parliament for Serere County, well, he has perished in an accident. And then we also learned that Clark Member of Parliament, Gilbert Olanya, was also involved in an accident. Fortunately, he wasn't injured, but you know, such a time calls for much vigilance, especially those on the road, because normally, I don't know what's within this period, normally we experience a number of such hiccups happening, and of course taking people's lives. But we continue praying to the Almighty to protect us, to guide us, and of course give those who have lost their lives an eternal rest, and strengthening those who have lost their loved ones. My name is Abdallah Latif again, once again, and our topic of discussion tonight, we need to focus on the US Africa Leaders Summit. But we need to bring the conversation back home. This summit started in 2014 when Barack Obama was the president of the United States of America. That was around July. That's when he held the very first summit, the US Africa Leaders Summit. And basically the main essence was to want to strengthen the relationship between, excuse me, between the United States and the African countries, to how to promote trade amongst you know, the countries, the African continent and the United States, promotion of human rights, and a number of things to do with leadership and governance. So this summit attracted a number of 49 countries from the African continent, with the exception of the countries that whose membership to the AU was suspended. Countries like Mali, countries like Burkina Faso, countries like there are around 4 to 5 countries, and actually including Sudan. So Joe Biden, during the reign of Donald Trump, he was like, no, when I get into office, I will make sure that I bring it back, the US African African Leaders Summit to ensure that they have that extensive discussion. And one beauty that transpired within this summit is that the US president never had a one-on-one conversation with any African leaders. All conversations were as a group, as a team, between Africa as leaders and, of course, the United States President, Joe Biden. Well, in the studios, I've been joined by very strong men, legal brains. One is from the, the newest political party on the land, newest, of course, in courts. And one from one of the... Sometimes it's difficult for me when I'm describing the political party where this gentleman comes from. It's a party that has existed for...
Say one of the oldest, and that's the truth.
Yes, one of the oldest parties that seems to have stagnated somewhere. And maybe, yes, on this very, very platform, we'll be able to know what's happening. Just recently, we saw a team of leaders from the Justice Forum paying a courtesy visit to UDA of Kenya, the ruling party. So we are here to find out. Well, Odaka Asuman is the Secretary General of the NED party, and then Namakajjo Derrick, he is the Legal Secretary for the Justice Forum. I want to start with Odaka Asuman. You were formerly one of the strongest members of the Justice Forum. Along the way, you had to cross. What happened? Maybe we can start from that.
I did not cross. I think crossing is a misuse of language because it will presuppose that the other one existed.
You left and then participated in the creation, the formation of a new party?
That one is nearest to the truth. I was a member of JEEMA for some time. I joined... An
inactive member, by the way?
Yes, very, very active.
Yes, if you say very, just a member, active. It is so light.
I recruited some of you. Okay. But I joined the Justice Forum in 2010. And I exited somewhere in 2017.
After stagnating, so you exited?
I don't know. Stagnation is your own language.
And I am responsible for that.
You are responsible for that. There's a gentleman that was the administrative secretary before I became. Was called Yahya Seremba. One of the things that made him be fired, he had his magazine called The Campusser. And he wrote that, he wrote an article, very comprehensive article, it is even online. He said, the stagnated parties of Uganda.
Oh.
You know? And JEEMA was #1. And
his own party?
Yes, and he was the administrative secretary, you can imagine. He wrote that, and that earned him exit. They fired him because of that. but anyway, no party, I up to date, even when I left that party, up to date, I believe that party is not stagnated.
Okay.
It is better be described as a developing party. We refer
to a party as a developing one until when?
Well,
or it has no time frame.
Well, developing has no time because development is not development of any whether organization or human being is not an event. It is always a process. In a life of a human being,
this process.
JEEMA was registered, I think, on 27th May 2005. I have that because, so 2005, this is about 20 years. 20 years in the life of an organization.
Plus a few years when it existed.
When it was as a pressure group. Yes, that's true, as a pressure group. So, but for me, I want to count this. But you see, one would, if you wanted to compare it with others that were existing under normal circumstances,
at that time,
you would think JEEMA is stagnated. But if you brought into play the conditions under which it has existed, you would appreciate. Let me tell you, and let me tell you.
I think that preamble is going to...
Let me tell you, JEEMA existed at a time when this government associated it with the rebel group. By the way, if there is any party whose members were killed killed. You know, killing, rounding up and killing them and associating them with the ADF was JEEMA. So much that people were fearing just to say they are members of JEEMA. I'm telling you, that is a party where members would come for a meeting and don't write minutes on account that they don't want their name to appear anywhere, because if you appeared anywhere, it is likely that you are going to be ADF. If there is a party that will really faced the wrath of this government, it is that party. So I recount for you so many.
So when you're describing, there's some exceptions you make for that party.
Yeah, certainly. That's why I'm telling you, if you want to think that it developed like others developed,
it has experienced the worst.
You see, when it started, and I think Mr. Mayanja's first contest, when he led by Omar Kalinge, Omar is the one who led the collection of signatures to nominate Mr. Mayanja Chivirige, both the first time and the second time. 96 and you know what they kept on telling him? The propaganda was that is a mini group. A mini group. Propaganda created by this government. So I can tell you a story, but you see, let me come back to where I am, is that, we all have where you want to go to based on our own aspirations. So you join, there are where you can join, but you think the organization is good, but it does not fit your own aspiration. Not that the organization is bad, but there is where you want to go. So for me, I exited because, you see, parties have to accommodate. They say, aggregating our own aspiration, because you have your interest, he has interest, we simply aggregate together. But there are moments where you go back and say, okay, I want to be at point B, but you see, I don't want my interest to antagonize the interest that is existing
of the institution.
In good manners, you exit and you go and pursue where you think that's what I did, because I realized if I had maybe my speed was very high,
faster than,
or low. You can't tell. And therefore, in that way, you don't want to conflict with, you don't want to create a conflict in an organization.
Well, thank you so much. That's Bwana Odaka Asuman Marjan. I normally call him of Tororo because that's where he comes from. Well, Bwana Derrick Namakajjo, you're most welcome, sir.
Thank you, Papa. As I received your call to be here, first I took it as a real opportunity. You know, coming on air and have a topic to disseminate, because you are not just discussing, but we are disseminating information back to the citizens globally. Justice Forum is doing good, and I believe you just have to swallow back your words of stagnation.
No, that's, I am responsible for that.
If you were to go into the definition of the word stagnation, back to our primary English, an example you can use is water flowing. And it reaches a time that it has no any tributary or any vein that it has to continue flowing. That means that that water is in the mode of stagnation, and it causes other side effects or ancillary effects, such as a collection of mosquitoes, which cause malaria. So stagnation, in simple terms, it is not a meaning of its own, but it carries effects, call them side effects, such as malaria, fever, among others. And also contributing to my brothers, the man of Tororo Malijani, where he used the word developing. Yes, true, developing is not an event. Rather, it is a creation of process.
It's an endless process.
It is an endless process.
Okay.
An example I can give, comparing to other political parties, such as the Forum for Democratic Change, among others. The only one goal or the agenda of all political parties, mostly in opposition, is to take power. Whereas that is in the ruling party is to maintain power. So I would wonder if any of the opposition political parties will come up and say that for them they are developed political parties, you can't say that you're developed yet you're still in opposition. So all political parties in opposition are developing parties.
Democratic parties developing
democratic parties regardless of your ideologies. You
60 years of existence, we still refer to them as a
developing political party.
Because they've never captured power.
Since the Democratic Party participated in its first election in 1962, where it emerged the opposition by then, you can't say that when it was the leading opposition in 1962, and in 2022, it is just one, it is counted as one of the opposition political parties, not as the leading. So
by virtue of being an opposition party, you automatically qualify to be a developing
political party. An example you can refer to states, countries. We have what we call the first-class countries and the developing countries, but doesn't take away the fact that they have their autonomous, independent power, as Uganda is a developing state, right? And it is a state of its own. It is having an autonomous power as Uganda. It has a right for self-determination. It has sovereignty.
Yes.
So you can't wake up one morning and say that Uganda is a stagnated state. No, it is just still in the process of becoming one of the world class. But also when you go to America, America will tell you that we are not yet even developed. We are not even yet in the first class, because according to their aspirations, they still need to go more. So JEEMA is a developing state, not a stagnant party.
Well, thank you so much.
My brother is giving it a lot of charity. You know, let me tell you, if you come to states and that happens with things to do, even organizations, to say developing is correct, and that is to be charitable to many organizations. But you see, there is what you must keep in mind, that there are also failed ones, because that you will be giving it, is giving it another definition. Because then the existence of either state of an organization must be subject to evaluation. Now, when you get back to the goals you've set, and the miles in terms of time you've walked, then we begin categorizing you not just as developing, but also as a failed one. Yes.
So you're introducing some. Let's not go into that conversation.
I wonder where some political parties like my brother Kendo Chamzi's party was now.
Well, these are the panels I have tonight, and of course, our conversation, our discussion, will be rotating around the issue of U.S. United States African Leaders Summit. But in this whole conversation, we are going to make sure that we try to bring it back home. We try to relate the objectives of this summit vis-a-vis what is happening here in our countries in Africa. You know, many African countries have challenges, and personally, there's some leaders I saw, and I was like, oh, maybe they would have not been there. Maybe for various reasons. You know, people like Paul Biya. I was like, really?
You mentioned another one. Don't you end there?
What's the other name?
I thought you were the one who had started mentioning. I thought you mentioned. How do you mention only?
So there are quite a number of African leaders are like, maybe they have seen enough. Well, I want to start with Derrick Namakajjo.
Yeah.
What are your readings of the Americans' interest in the Africa when you take a reflection on the objectives that are set for this summit?
Yeah.
In that, no, before you actually come in, one of the things they cited is like, during the Trump time, the Chinese have dominated many of the African countries, actually the African continent. And so maybe there is need for the United States to re-strategize and see how they can gain their dominance.
Yeah, thank you, Tiff. I would wish and also want our viewers to know that the Cold War that we were in years ago is not yet dissolved, or the Cold War is not yet determined. by the fact that there is no physical war globally amongst states, doesn't mean that we are not in the war. I understand that the universe, as of now, it is going through what we call the economic Cold War. And the economic Cold War comes in that there has to be one party fighting the other. That is a war. And for it to be cold, it has to be kind of silent at times. And so that you don't need every time to walk and you find bloodshed everywhere. So we are dealing with a concept known as the economy of the global of the international community, call it the universe. On the other hand, we have the China states among also the followers to China, but also you are having the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Not forgetting that over years now, like more around 6-7 years, that there was the emergence of the other cold bloc known as the BRICS. That is Brazil, Russia, India,
yes,
China, and South Africa.
Yes.
The kind of those BRICS also, we have to understand that they work in the world of the so-called, we have the G20, we have the G8, among others, whereby even the G20, it is USA with the most bargaining power in the G20.
Actually, in the G20, it's the G8 that influences.
Yeah, exactly. That influences the G20.
Yes.
And whereby the G8, it is the main pillar, it is USA. When Joe Biden was making a statement, but in a joking way, he said that you people, you have been inviting me to your states, but I'm still contemplating, but I'm coming. But when I come, let us be observant of some people you invite and the relatives which are not serious in handling issues. That kind of statement is a paraphrased statement, of, not as he said it expressly. It narrates, or it gives you a combination to some other states that have been invited and welcomed by the African states, not being America. And some of the states being welcomed by African states, number one, has to be China. China almost has been welcomed by all African states. Coming back to our own country, as Uganda, wherever you try to analyze some of the concepts regarding bilateral trades and contracts, a word of contracts, in one way or the other, you have to see China manifesting somehow, expressly or impliedly, directly or indirectly. An example is I can give Uganda wakes up one morning and wants to enter into a certain contract. An example is the MPG Express. And it is CCECC, which is China Construction Engineering sort of company. Together, it has railway sort of 90th railway company, yes, sort of from China. It got a contract to construct the said road or the express. And some of the money is coming through. They are coming through Exim Bank, Afri-Exim. And where does Afri-Exim come from?
China.
China through Tanzania. And the thing is, go if you wanted a loan.
It's actually Export and Import Bank.
Import Bank.
That's
so it is not exporting or importing even physical materials only, or called say bricks, sand from Rueda. No. In their understanding, it is a monetary importing, exporting company, which in the taxation language, we could call it tax evasion or profit repatriation. That after you bring in foreigners or non-citizens to come and work in Uganda, at the end of the day, they will have to repatriate their money back. But this is what we call the modern repatriation, not the so-called, old repatriation, where we use now to refer to go into Switzerland and look for the Swiss bank, because all of us we know that each and every warlord will have to
have an account
in Swiss. So we are dealing with the importation and exportation of money by the sub bank. So if you want to get a loan from China to construct a said road,
you don't need to go to China.
You don't need to go to China. Or even though you go to China, they will have to say, yes, we are giving you a loan, but go to Exim. Going to Exim, it is a bank. It has to come up with...
It's a rotational thing.
Yes, it has to come up with a said percentage of paying back. You are going to get a loan from Exim, you have to pay back on condition from China that the said company that will have to construct the express road, it will have to be a Chinese
firm.
So now this is how China has dominated not only the economic field, but even the engineering and construction sectors in all of the African countries. So having analyzed this, and this happened more during the Donald Trump's leadership term, that the gentleman perhaps wasn't so much interested in the economic foreign policy, more so in Africa. Rather for him, he could be more interested in building what we can call the sovereignty of America. In appreciating the sovereignty of America, Africans limitation to visa. Red Indies, Arabs, restriction, because he wants to concretize the sovereignty of America. Now we are back to the foreign policy. And Joe Biden's invitation to all the African states, it wasn't by accident. As America...
It was after some analysis on ground, and like there is a big gap.
There is a big gap. One, the question you have to first ask yourself is, we have various continents, but
why Africa?
Which continent is as rich as Africa in natural resources?
Well, let's first keep it at that, and I want to go to Bwana Asuman Odaka to also give me his reading of the US-African Leaders Summit. How do you look at this summit? What's your understanding of everything as they transpired?
Yeah, thank you. But you see, this particular summit has a number of aspects out of it you can pick out of it. If you want to look at the economic aspect of it, it's as big and broad and rich. From the political angle, equally the same. Although sometimes we want to define politics as the most concentrated aspect of the economy.
Because they move hand in hand.
One influences the other.
Yes.
In the rich countries, one is a superstructure. Economy is a superstructure. In the poor countries, poorly governed, politics becomes a superstructure. That is a contradiction in them. But you see, this continent, Africa, number one, let me first do the pick-out point, is that some of the world-celebrated economists still to date forecast that Africa, left on its own, will be the next superpower.
If it's left on its own.
Left on its own. You mark that word, left on its own. It can be the next superpower. Therefore, anybody who wants to maintain a lead, the world global lead, both in terms of influence, but also, of course, economy, must find a way of how to have Africa within its claws. That is the reason why it is not by accident that nearly 70% of the African use AK-47, and that's from Russia. Now, you would really see that in the last 10 years, you would see 10, 20 years, you will see the influence of China in Africa. Now, US has just to wake up and say, hey, I have been on, because you see, these Chinese, these Africans, these African warlords and dictators, when they are governing their people, they can give up anything, but they don't want to be told how to govern their people. And therefore, they will most likely side with one who is giving them a blank check. In regard,
as long as you keep yourself off the question of governance.
Don't tell them about human rights, don't tell them about governance, don't tell them about law.
And China is not into that.
And China is not, first of all, China is also a global leader in terms of violating their... So how can you cut a branch of a tree on which you're standing? So that is it. So I will tell you that Africa, in terms of relating with those global powers, they started relating to us as Africa first as a slave ground where they grabbed slaves to go and develop their own economies. That one they found it a little either costly or something. They said they should just come and colonize us. They came here, and 1884 and so on, the balkanization of this and petitioning, where you come from, the Samias the other side and the Samias this way, where they are relatives, they are brothers, but that was all as a result of the kind of relations the West wanted to have with Africa. We then came to the issue where what you're calling neo-colonialism and so on. Influence of the West and so on. But China, the emergence of China is changing the dynamics. Is changing the dynamics. Because if you made research, let's talk about just what we have around Uganda. Contracts. I am telling you, it is very difficult now to find very few. I don't have the statistics here offhand, but I will tell you there are very few contracts that are now being awarded to companies from the West on merit. And that is money, because that's how they make the money. In other words, China is taking everything. Even this war you see between Russia and Ukraine is a war that eventually may have the ultimate achievement in terms of goal would be in result to Africa. So Africa, unfortunately, the African dictators who go there not to negotiate any tangible, whether in terms of market, whether in terms of anything for this. They go there to get endorsed.
Supremacy.
No, to be endorsed. None of those guys.
Mr. Museveni.
Mr. Museveni.
Just one statement. We thank Mr. Museveni for, and that is all.
Period. Let me tell you, you could even have seen from our social media back home here how the propagandists were celebrating Mr. Museveni's invitation to America.
But it was a general invitation anyway.
It was. But you see, you would also see we in the opposition, how we were hurt and fighting so that Mr. Museveni's invitation is withdrawn. Now, nobody is discussing, and that's apart from you people, nobody is discussing what is our going to kneel, because this was summoning, responding to an American summon, going to add value in terms of health. There is an article I was reading today, a journalist who asked Mr. Museveni and asked him, we know for a fact that Biden called you for a lecture, and he lectured all of you. He lectured them on what America wants. But tell me, how many contracts?
Asuman, I am going to request my producer to play me Mr. Museveni's voice, at least for 1 minute only. Let's have His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's voice.
That is also Mr.
We have what we call a health center 3 per sub-county. And there are 2,184 sub-counties in Uganda. Then we have health center 4 at the county constituency. And there are 353 parliamentary constituencies in Uganda, out of which 167 have the health center 4s. We call them health center 4s. A constituency has around 100,000 persons. The third tier has a district hospital. This should be 147 in Uganda. However, we now have 45 of them. There are then the regional referral hospitals, which should be 21. We now have 16 of them. There is then the National Referral Hospital at Mulago, plus other specialized national health assets such as the Women's Hospital, the Joint Clinical Research Center for AIDS. All the above are government health facilities. There are, however, many private health facilities belonging to private people, to the churches.
I think as Africans, we need to be very, very honest to ourselves. You know, it is so disappointing when you see a president trading lies in such a summit.
No, lies.
And then when you listen, it's like he's trying to give an account. It's like he's accounting for
accountability.
But I just told you here, you didn't believe me, that they were responding to a summon for endorsement. Now, unfortunately, you go there with the very extremely flawed statistics as a president. You see the president of a country. Did you see his body language? He was shaking. Did you see? Did you see? He was giving an accountability he was not sure of. How can you say each constituency has
1,000 people?
So if we have 1,000 people per constituency, we have 300 and something. So we have less than 10 million people in this country, according to him. So I am telling you. So in other words, where I'm telling you that this is the other phase. If you read the Kwame Nkrumah's book of neocolonialism, that's why Africa must unite. And he says there is going to be a phase called neocolonialism as a continuation of colonialism. It is going to be, and he defined it as the most dangerous stage of colonialism, where the white man will not be here. You get it? He will not be here, but he will be controlling everything in remote. If you look at that, the gentleman who has just spoken, do you really do you doubt he wasn't a remote controlled person? That's one. Number two, tell me the body language of the president, the way you see him and giving that statistics. You tell me what kind, which condition can be given to him by Joe Biden and he will not give it. Which one? Just tell me which one. Is it a gold mine? Is it... I don't see. So I will tell you.
They actually signed a multi-million contract, a deal. They brought a deal for
80
oil?
billion US dollars.
80 billion, yes, for oil.
For oil. And you know what? Oil. You know, and you know the history, how contracts of this failed contract, you remember the EU.
There was even a case, there was a court case on related to oil.
Exactly.
Where Uganda was, you remember the 6, was it the 6 billion handshake?
Yeah, golden.
The golden,
so,
was it called the golden? Yeah.
Golden handshake.
Yes, that one where Mr. Lee was convicted.
Exactly.
You remember, Mr. Lee was convicted, and part of, was he exhibit number 6?
It was 140, I think 14. There was Mr. Museveni and Kutesa.
He was the can you imagine? He was the president. You are president of a country.
But he was acquainted.
They put you as exhibit. That is what was.
1405, something like that.
Now, exhibit, you tell me, what were the diplomatic negotiation beyond that? You see, let me tell you, when you remember the Kenyan president and the vice president had an issue to do with the ICC.
Yes, Ruto.
Obama wanted to come to the US, to Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
The only condition Obama gave is that I cannot shake hands with the people who are in court. That's why Ruto's case was expedited and then dropped for Obama to come, because there was nobody to receive him. Now, the policy within the part of the foreign policy of the US is that you do not, there are things you must not be described with.
To have a meaningful relationship.
No, to have a handshake with their president. Now, here is exhibit. You exhibited the president in the US court.
So do you have exceptions with such standards when it comes to some
that means they have subdued it. There is something. Those things are removed when you do trade-offs. Now, we do not know to date what trade-off Mr. Museveni, NRM government made with the US to get this
exceptions.
Thank
you so much.
And that would be a dangerous one for our country, by the way.
Thank you.
Beyond analysis.
Thank you, Bwana Odaka. Well, for our viewers, this is the Hotline Show, and we're trying to make sense, to deeply understand what's within the US African Leaders Summit. Mr. Museveni came back home with a kavera. You know, he came back with a kavera over that oil deal. And of course, Ugandans should be excited about this.
I hope it isn't, if you have the answer.
We all pray. And now I want to go to Bwana Namakajjo Derrick.
Yeah.
Besides the kavera the president came back home with, do we have other benefits out of this summit? Given the fact that the number of issues discussed were quite extensive, and we're stretching to all aspects of life, looking at health, the issues to do with SDGs, to things to do with the environment, climate change, the things to do with leadership and governance, by the way, human rights, a number of them.
I will start with the last, human rights, and a number of them. When we grew up, all of us, we thought and we knew, one, the number one country, usually in our international language, we used to call them the big dogs, is USA. And in the family, when you're in the family of like 5 people, and you're with the weakest person, whenever you're being bullied by any other outsider, you run to the strongest person in your family to report. So all along, when we were young, we thought that the place we could run to report
was the US.
I remember when Donald Trump was campaigning, one of the statements he made was, Africa, I'm coming. Uganda, I'm coming.
He mentioned the 2 countries. Please mention them for the viewers.
No, one is Uganda, you can mention
he
the
mentioned
other.
the president.
But the catch,
he mentioned the people he was going to put in jail.
Uganda, I'm coming. And ideally, in the African setting, when I say that Buganda, I'm coming, I'm not meaning Uganda as a kingdom. I'm going to the chief or the head or the king of that particular household. So I believe that what he was portraying is, Mr. Yoweri Kaguta, I'm coming. What all of us we thought.
That's how you thought, and that's how you wanted it to be.
And that's what Donald Trump said.
Okay.
He said it expressly, that I'm coming to you. And most of Ugandans really celebrated.
I'm saying Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
Okay.
By then. And of course, as an opposition person in the opposition,
you clapped.
You have to clap. You have to rejoice, because you're getting hope minus you crawling for it, because we didn't crawl for hope, or we didn't go to Donald Trump to say that please come and help us. It was out of cry, but key to note that no person could feel sorry for you minus having interest in you. You feeling sorry for a woman you know, there's this concept, you might be in your suit and you fall in love with a certain beautiful lady. And you end up seeing a lady also falling in love with a Rastafarian. So you start asking yourself, now this Rastafarian who is every day taking marijuana and alcohol, whatever, which future is having for this girl? So you start feeling sorry for you, I mean, within your heart. So feeling sorry for her, but within your heart. But you're not feeling sorry because you're feeling so that he's entering into a den of lions. But you're feeling sorry because of the interest you're having in her. So the kind of America during the Donald Trump coming to Uganda wasn't just a simple and implied, I mean, an express thing that they're just coming to hop and go. One, all of us, we have to agree that the gold mines we have, or the gold sites we have in Uganda, weren't discovered of recent. Mm-hmm. We have a saying that politics is not played in the sitting room, mm-hmm. rather is made and played in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Uganda coming up to declare the few sites it did early this year. It wasn't. It doesn't mean that those sites were gotten or discovered just this year. Recently, yes. We remember they had to come up and put on record around 2 sites. One in the Karamojong side and another one, is it in Busia? Busia, yes. In Busia. What about the ones in Kasanda? Are they gold sites, or they are diamond sites, or they are, should I say, toilet sites? I don't know. But they're not yet declared. But if you are to go and you carry out a survey on the residents in Kasanda, they'll tell you that every time cars do take gold. We have petroleum, oil sites. When they told us that they will start the refinery in years to come, you can do a ground survey to people there. And what is going on with oil, you'll give us the report. When you go to the areas of Kamoli, sort of, ask them, do you have any mineral this side? And see if they will tell you that whether they have certain gold from that side, among others, of course. So calling Uganda and also seeing Mr. Museveni coming up with the Kavera, it is not by coincidence. When you say that Joe Biden didn't have a one-on-one with African presidents, true, but he had what we can call caucusing. A caucusing. Not the 40 whatever US Africa Summit convention that seated in the conference hall, but they were caucusing. On Wednesday night, East Africa. On Wednesday night, was able even to meet up with some leaders in West Africa, and they had to discuss. But even prior to that, one of the secretaries, a state secretary in America, had to meet the president of the Angola, whereby all of us know that Angola is almost one of the strongest energy countries in Southern Africa. He had also one of the state whatever had to meet up with the president of Senegal.
Maxally.
Yeah, and also we saw that one of the other people had to go to Ethiopia. All these gatherings, our analysis shouldn't only be considered on the US Africa Summit.
Actually, it was beyond.
Actually, they were supposed to meet, have a meeting, the Secretary of State, supposed to have these ones about the Congo thing.
The Congo thing.
It is the Sekedi who refused, and that's how that meeting collapsed.
Well, so, we need to go for a very short break. And of course, when we return, we shall have to continue with our conversation. And this is the Hotline Show, and my name is Abdallah Latif.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short break, and the hotline show continues. Well, before we went for the break, we're trying to analyze and understanding the US-Africa Leaders Summit that happened in Washington, D.C. just last week. Yes, and 49 African leaders were present, actually 49 countries, because some other countries didn't, like for the president of Mnangagwa didn't attend. It's the Minister of Foreign Affairs who attended, and a few other countries I am forgetting. Now, before we went for the break, Namakajjo, you're trying to analyze and sharing your readings of the event. But I want to start with Abuan Odaka. And much as these issues are discussed, do we have to jubilate as Africans? Not in the context of jubilating, because at one point someone mentioned or said a statement that gave hope to people like you who are in the opposition. But looking at the summit that now African leaders are seated and they are having a conversation with one of the superpowers, is there something for us to jubilate and like, well, some work in progress?
Number one, first of all, extricate me from about those who jubilated, because I did not.
Jubilating over what? The summit or the statement?
No, over the statement that they were coming from Museveni.
Okay.
Because that's what my brother wanted to say, but he feared to mention the name.
No.
I left because it is not. I am not the originator of the word. It is a Trump. But although he did not also come, I saw some friends of mine, including Moses Vigirwa, going to American embassy and telling to remind Trump
that you promised us.
You
this.
promised us, but all
How far?
Anyway, but you see, that is what happens when it is disheartening, because that's what happened when a people, a citizen, are in despair. When a leader, you push people to desperation. Now, what we get from this, I will tell you that it is bad, it is so disappointing that the president was speaking the way he was speaking in the first place, because that indicates something bigger. Even what we were imagining now seems to have been magnified and authenticated by that, our suspicion, because that does not indicate somebody who was in proper right of mind, but also in a proper capacity to negotiate. Because that was not a negotiation. You can only go to negotiate for your people. That's when you can bring what you called kavera. Now, whatever was in that kavera that he carried could have been poison. And I mean quote unquote. Africa does not need. I told you when they were saying, when they said that, there is a book called Why Nations Fail. You need to read it, because this guy makes very, very important, makes very important interrogation. He asks, for example, when you go to US, there is a town between North America and South America. He says they speak the same language, they drink from the same water, they breathe from the same air, everything is real. But you see, the other side, their life expectancy is too low, this side is too. Then he says the answer is just one, question of leadership. Me and you come from around the borders. Let me make a comparison. When you stand around no man's land, then you look at Busia, Uganda, Busia, Kenya. Then you look at Busia, Kenya.
There is a big difference.
They are, you see that no man's land, for example, in Malaba, where I come from, I know a family, a man whose family, another wife has a house this side, and another wife has the other side. But you see, the quality of life of a woman on the side of Kenya,
you might think that he gets more love compared
you might think you see, so then you ask, what is the problem? The problem lies in that book, Why Nations Fail. Somebody should read that book. Now, so when you look at our leaders, Africa has everything. By the Africa has really everything it needs to be a superpower. There are only two things it lacks. It lacks the leadership with good mentality. Only those, nothing else. Because you see whatever. Let me give you Israel, for example. Israel today is the leading fruit-growing country in the world. Is it true? Mm-hmm. It is also one of the leading maize-growing countries in the world.
I didn't know about that.
It is true. You ask Mr. Google. But you know where they grow their things from? They are the ones who constructed the Entebbe airport. And every little soil they would scoop, they would put on their plane and take to Israel. It is where today they are the leading fruit and crop growing in the world. Is that leadership, or what happened? What happened to you Ugandans from where they scooped the little soil? You see Japan? Mm-hmm. Japan does not have anything, any mineral. It is just rock. But every car you see on the road, which is Toyota, comes from Japan. What happened? It is leadership. I was privileged to go. I've gone to Tanzania more than twice or thrice. I went to Tanzania before Magufuli. I am telling you, Dar es Salaam, you would find traffic jam and it was mess, just messed. I went just 5 years down the road when I went again when Magufuli was in power. He had sorted out that.
He used 9 months.
He used 9 months to sort out that. Can you imagine? So what is that? That is leadership with the proper mentality. So to solve the problems of Africa, you don't have to go and do accountability like Mr. Museveni was doing. Accountability, even presenting wrong statistics. You don't need to do. Africa needed, but by the way, if they invited you, for example, and that's why I'm sure these of Mr. Museveni were fearing, if they invited you and you refused to go, you know what would happen to you? You know what happened to Gaddafi, you know what happened to Mugabe, you know what happened to all those. Of course, I didn't agree with them from the perspective of their being repressive. Now, when you look at, there are things you don't have to do. Because when Mr. Museveni was being interviewed by one journalist, Bahati Remi there, and they asked him about human rights. You know, all the rest of the things was giving, then he came to that one, he said, but I am not the president of Uganda on account of, because of America. Mm-hmm. You get it? Now, you can't, so why, so if you are not a president of Uganda because of America, you see the oil he was talking about, it is true that the oil in Uganda here, contrary to the facts people didn't know, was discovered under President Obote. the oil. Part of what kept that oil underground is because, one, we did not have capacity probably to drill it, and two, because the president, especially Obote himself, thought the West were not giving him proper deal for his country. And yet, he knew this is a depletable resource. Ours today, we have, of course, discovered a little more than just the oil, more than what was there, but also more than the oil. Let me tell you, today, things that would make Ugandans rich, for example, first get the oil away. It's the highest revenue, and that causes our GDP is gold and coffee. Go and find out gold and coffee. You know that there are times in this country where you would move around Uganda and they tell you nyumba mwanyizabala. Isn't it?
Even cars called mwanyizabala by then.
Whatever and so on. And by then, coffee was fetching Ugandans about $700 million. You get it? Today, it has tripled by times 7. Times 7. But you see, you show me anybody you can point out here that one is a tycoon out of coffee. You show me just one. It is not there. Let me just 1 minute. If you followed this so much, you find there's this one called Pensi. Who is this one who had been given? Penetti. You get it? Now it is the Penettis. So when the people, let me tell you,
we have two Penettis. Remember?
We're talking about the original Penetti.
Okay. Let me be official and talk about that Penetti. You see, when they go to those meetings, that meeting, for example, the people who go to subdue and get deals, you will not see them on camera. Those meetings, Mr. Museveni was admitting that he got so many meetings of investors, of this. Those were the Penettis they went to do deals with. Those presidents, how those countries exploit Africans, they set their own mafias. Then you meet. By the time Mr. Museveni flies to US, they have made so many appointments for deals, for this. Mr. Museveni admitted in that meeting, in that press conference with that monitor journalist, that he had more than 20 meetings. Did he reveal who he met?
Well, thank you, Bano Odaka. You know, if you remember the whole issue of the Penetti and the coffee deal and all that.
There is also the gold one.
People didn't know who was behind this until when Mr. Museveni himself said, like, no, if those trying to castigate Penetti for this, it is me. I am the man behind.
We used to tell them, but they
I think that was, it was in Kololo. I don't remember what event it was. Well, the US summit had a number of meetings, and one of them was African and Diaspora Young Leaders Forum. They had a discussion on that.
Who came from Uganda?
African and Diaspora Young Leaders Forum. And then there was one other discussion on Civil Society Forum. There was also African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. You know, the AGOA was here for some time back. In Bugorobi there was that factory which we used to call AGOA. They used to manufacture...
That is slightly in the Bugorobi whatever.
Yes.
When they tried to sell it, it was valued in 2016 around 39 billion shillings. And when they sold it around 6 billion shillings.
Then there was a US-Africa Space Forum. There was Peace, Security and Governance Forum. I don't know what some presidents presented there. Partnering for Sustainable Health Cooperation. Then Conservation, Climate Adaptation, and a Just Energy Transition. Then there was Charting the Course, the Future of US-Africa Trade and Investment Relations. Then there was building a sustainable future, partnerships to finance African infrastructure and the energy transition. Then growing agribusiness, partnerships to strengthen food security and value chain. And then there was also advancing digital connectivity, partnerships to enable inclusive growth through technology. Well, in the prior discussion, you did mention about China.
Yes.
And my understanding here is that I think China is very smart. They looked at what is lacking in Africa.
Mm.
What is that thing, one thing that will move the leaders? Besides that, they do not talk about these things of human rights. They are not part of such conversations. Their only language is money.
Mm.
And now, if you look at the so many civil society organizations here, you will hardly find an organization that receives funds from China.
Mm.
But for them, they're dealing directly with, there is a project to do here, we need to construct this, and like we are there.
Mm.
You will never see them with these NGO things. That is now something which was left to. Do you think that is one way of the Chinese is trying to what's the word I want to use? To dominate the African continent at the expense of the West?
You know, you can't dominate what you're giving out freely. You cannot. Rather, you dominate what you're giving out on condition.
And that's what they are doing.
I'm a person who is into the civil societies. And all civil societies and NGOs, the funders come from the West. But also ask yourself, we have China as a country. How many NGOs or civil societies that China embraced nationally? Does China believe in the concept of NGOs? That is the first thing you have to ask yourself. Why? Does China believe in the concept of free giving minus conditions? Because if it believes in that concept, meaning that it is going to become a beggar. And what China is fighting for is not to become a beggar, rather is to become a superpower. So there is no way that China will have to accept the concept of civil society organizations, which are based on the foundation known as charitable organization and non-profitable organization. When they come in Uganda to give you, they are giving you, but with expectations of profit. When you're dealing with a businessman doesn't want to know how you're operating or you're running your family or your business. What he wants to know, will you be able to bring back my money? When you go to certain banks to apply for a given loan, what they want to know is the capacity to pay back. And how to determine the capacity to pay back is the security. Whether it is charity, I mean whether it is a fixed security, movable and unmovable, as long as it holds value, what the loan you're applying for. But how you're going to use your loan, those are your issues. So now take it that China comes in the way of money lenders. What money lenders do is, how much do you want? 50,000. That is there. How are you going to pay it? Do you have security? Yes, I have. Good enough. But if you don't have security,
but what are you going to use the money? They also ask such questions.
What are you going to use money? Those are just, let me call them mediocre money lenders.
No. Because what China does, when they're giving you, for instance, $50 million, and like, I need a road here, they'll tell you, okay, we have a farm that's going to execute that.
Exactly.
The lead contractor must be from.
And that's why I'm saying that those are now the advanced money lenders. You know, you're just advancing the concept of money lending. I was giving an example of money lenders locally in Uganda. What they do, then you compare with China as a money lender. So if, you know, globally we don't have an international trading organization bringing money lenders together. But what I can say is that we have a money lender load, who is China, is lending you money, whereas is giving an option of which services are you going to, which service provider are you going to hire? So the concept of NGOs, civil societies, that is charitable. And what Western countries do believe in, more so USA, is if you want to capture the African mind, African minds, we are so bad because we believe in free giving.
We believe in receiving.
Yes, mpako. You know, even in Uganda, whatever, we have a song called mpako tolizala kalema. Because if you don't give me, you will end up giving birth to a lame person. And who wants to give birth to a lame person?
You definitely give.
You'll definitely give. So by the time we came up to compose that particular song, meaning that we are into free giving and charity. So what we are getting from America, they saw that we need charity. And the Kavera, our president came back with, that was charity, but a personal charity. But a conditional one. Because you can't just walk away freely because it is a free charity. Because one, you don't know what that Kavera is going to do. Are you the one who went to attend? One, that is a per diem, to my own understanding. Because whenever you attend a certain gathering, nowadays, we expect per diem. Those who are into a company, whatever, or NGOs, you expect per diem. If you don't get per diem, then this is now when I have to agree with my brother Odaka. When he came out and said that they were summoned. The only difference from that summoning, from that of court, is that for court, is you're summoned to explain your wrongdoings. But for the US-Africa Summit, is a summon of accountability.
And also be given instruction.
Be given instructions. Thank you very much. So that is the only difference. How I wish, or how many Ugandans or African natives would wish that they are summoned to give evidence as to their atrocities.
Derrick,
it would have been
as African and the entire continent, for the leaders, the 49 countries that participated in the second summit, what are the take-homes out of this summit?
Take-homes as leaders who attended or as states?
As states.
One, we just need to tighten our belts in regarding to being careful. We have now to take steps towards precaution as the citizens of Uganda. You know, there is what I
When you talk of precautions, it's like you're meaning to imply that they were given fresh instructions on how to govern you?
On how to rule us and on how to surrender us.
Really?
Exactly, that is to my understanding. Why would I say so? One, I was telling you that it is better to have one money render than having 3 money renders. Right now you're having China. 1 year ago we were trying to, we saw news all over, bloggers, news that Entebbe airport is going. Hope we recall. And we have a proverb always saying that says that no smoke without fire. I don't know where it ended. Maybe my brother Odaka knows better since they are into economic empowerment and development. He knows better what stopped Entebbe from going. But now on top of...
Who told you it stopped?
Because maybe it has not yet changed the rebranding as Entebbe International Airport. But as we are still being cautious of China, now we just have to be more cautious of USA. When I was telling you is before, why Africa? Why isn't it that Africa is the most richest and powerful continent? 2, which continent is richer in terms of natural resources? Why is it that the richest continent in terms of natural resources is the one being summoned? So this takes us back to the Kwame Nkrumah's book that we talked about here. Colonialism vis-a-vis neo-colonialism. If you are to go back to the concept of colonialism by then, we had some protectorates or colonies that were under the direct system, and others were under indirect system. And in Uganda, we had the parts of Eastern, also where you two hail from, where Semei Kakunguru did too much work on behalf of the whites in ensuring that the white regime or leadership, the Her Majesty, by then they used to call it, I represent Her Majesty, that the people of Masaba, the people of Samialand understand Her Majesty through Semei Kakunguru. Right now, the today's Semei Kakunguru are the Yoweri Kaguta Musevenis, among others. So now let us ask ourselves, did Semei Kakunguru do good to your grandfathers of Umbara and the Tororo? And if we did good, then let us also expect the good from those who represented. But if we know the outcomes of the colonialists, then also let us expect the outcomes tripling by 2 for these people attend the US Africa Summit.
Well, thank you so much, Bwana Namakajjo Derrick. I want to pose the same question to Bwana Odaka. Maybe he could be having different lenses and how you see these things. I don't want to believe that this entire summit has nothing good for the Africans. At least to a certain point, maybe. Because when you say they have been summoned, we expect that maybe perhaps there could be something, you know, for the Africans maybe, and I don't know. So in your own lenses, I don't want to believe that you subscribe to the same school of thought like he. He does not see anything good out of that summit. But for states, the African states. Now, in your own view, in your own perspective, what do you see?
Thank you. You just mentioned about 6 thematic areas of discussion. Are they 6?
Around 8.
Around 8. And the first one, because...
Actually, there are 11.
11. And the first one?
African and Diaspora Young Leaders Forum.
Young Leaders Forum. You see, let me tell you, and I was very conscious when I told you that these guys, that meeting was only engendered around 2 things. Number 1, they were summoned to make accountability of what they have, of the earlier instruction. Then 2, be given new instructions. Let me tell you, if you want to discuss something to do with the civil society development in a country, do you call Mr. Museveni? You see, just we know that for a fact, the biggest basket which has been helping civil society development in this country, called the DGF, was only opened to be closed. You know. You know that civil society organizations that we are trying to do on areas, nearly all of them that have been operating in areas of human rights and governance were closed. I mentioned some of them.
No.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
Where is it?
Land Alliance.
Land Alliance, where is it? Greece, where is it? SEDU, where is it? Those were big civil society organizations that were contributing towards our governance processes. Now, you close DGF, you know that even, you know that so many of these, including some of the you people management here, were at one time locked up at CMI for speaking and contributing towards governance processes. Now, if you want to talk about civil society development, engagement, do you call Mr. Museveni to what kind of conversation is that? So that is public relation. Number 2, when you talk about the issues of food security, you know these Americans are so good. When you are a garbage collector in somebody's home, they will call you sanitary engineer. You're a garbage collector. Sweet name. So when they talk about food security, do you know what they are pushing now? They are pushing issues to do with the GMO. That is an agenda through GMO. That is the instruction they were given. That's why the other time, this one of Kenya, the new one, when he went and he met one of the US, whatever is in Egypt here, he came and they were pushing GMO bill in Kenya.
That was after the copper something.
Yes, here in Kenya. That thing of space something. Do you remember about 3 or 1 month ago?
A few weeks.
Tukutuku space thing going up in this country?
Which we don't know where they launched it from.
Where? We don't know where. Do you get the connection now?
But Uganda has one rocket and satellite.
It has gone up there. So do you see the connection now? You see? Do you remember why when the president, the issue of health and what and so on, do you remember when the president was got the invite? Do you remember the one of the addresses where we were technically taken back into the COVID lockdown? The only word that missed was the lockdown. Do you remember? Is it different? So, my friend, when you see these things don't happen by mistake.
Well, thank you so much, Odaka. And for our viewers, we thank you for being part of the discussion. Those watching, Jenny Abala Jen, thank you for watching. Ethan Mwine, Jacaranda Brown, quite a number of people. Well, I want to read a few, just 2-3 comments here, and maybe you'll be able to respond. Our studio lines, I don't think we'll not be able to open the lines. They still have some technical glitches, and we hope they get fixed soon. Ethan Mwina says, he said each constituency has about 1,000 people. He wasn't exact, maybe, okay? Then he says, but you guys are shooting yourselves in the foot. You say that a Western country should not peddle our African development efforts. And the next minute, you are jubilating Donald Trump pointing fingers at particular African leaders for reasons he did not even mention. Don't play double standards. Stick to one side and tell us how we can foot our way to develop. I think the Biden thing, I mean the Trump thing, came in as a by the way. It wasn't like someone was giving an example how they have been given false hope, and at one point they think maybe those who are in opposition, who want to see things change, they thought maybe Donald Trump could do something. Actually, your comment here is a justification that nothing much can be done, with the exceptions if there are very strong interest there. You'll have time to respond. And then this one says, Jacaranda Brown. The kingdom, democratic tendencies, choose a king that was accomplished with wealth and unbribable. The politicians we get come with hunger and desperate to accept any proposal from Biden. Kabaka Mwanga rejected their proposals for the good of his country. Meaning, you can interpret that. Then Africans wake up. Colonialism is back, and worse than that before independence. America was stolen from the Red Indians, Australia from the Aboriginals. Globalization, divide and rule. Use them to kill themselves and use the minority to rule the majority. Constant factor, USA and the United Kingdom. Well, the question of Donald Trump, I think, was directly coming to you. Yeah. Maybe you can have a minute to respond.
I remember, if I'm to re-echo for my brother to understand my angle of discussion, when I gave an example of Donald Trump, I emphatically said that some opposition people jubilated. And I continue to say that no person could come to your aid minus having interest. That however much people were jubilating for Donald Trump's statement, but also they had to be so keen with, can you feel sorry for a girl you want to marry going in for a person you don't see future in. That was my statement. So to make it clear is, no person can give freely minus having interest in you. So to bring the two on the same side, on the same page, is however much Donald Trump wanted to come or made the statement that, hey, wait, Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, I'm coming. It did mean that behind that statement, there were other interests, or meaning that, wait, Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, I'm coming for you, but also for that gold.
Thank you. I think the point has been taken. Well, I want to... Now, the two of you come from different political grouping, parties. And I want to use the last 25 minutes to talk about this. Need, we know what is happening that side. Some of your members are, locked up. And the information is that more are still needed. Yeah. I don't know whether you're among those needed. This could be a good place to find you.
Has to be among them.
This could be a good place to find you.
It's still at
and then I also understand that you trekked to Kenya recently, and maybe we also need to share. You need to share with us what are some of the things that we should expect out of the new marriage between the JEEMA and the UDE party of Kenya. I want to start with Bwana Odaka. What is happening in the need?
Well, what is happening in need is what happens, especially if Museveni is taking you seriously. You get my point? If Museveni is taking you seriously, what is happening in need, it happens to you. And if he has not, the only sign that you are not seriously on him is when he has not done what he's doing to need. For us, that's what gives us comfort. Because our president and many of we have our members in Chenjojo, some in Bunyoro, some in Teso, even in Mbale here. Some of them were arrested, some are still in. Of course,
others are still on the run.
Others, I don't know if, because we deliberately told, I am the Secretary General of the party, so get the information from me. I told every member of need, don't be on the run, because you have broken no law. The only thing we want to ask government is that don't abduct our people. If you want any member of need, please lawfully arrest that member. Let him follow the law, because we shall follow the law. Of course, without going into the merits of some of the charges, especially now, let me talk about the president of need as now, that is being charged with uttering sectarian statements. We know the good thing, they have the video. We also have the video. We leave it that to court. But you see, number one, we'll talk about the issue of, because I don't want to go, because of sub judice, I don't want to go into the, we have in this country, some fat man who came and abused a certain tribe. You get it? Man, very fat man like this. Abused the tribe, opened his behind, and abused the leader of that tribe. And we never saw police even opening, even if it is something like a general inquiry. Never.
So that gave you hope and like...
No, not hope. And we do not want to... I am not saying I am justifying our own, because I know what our president says, and we know what police has, the video and so on. And by the way, our president is being... I said, don't take me into discussing that. But I will tell you that for us, as need, he has steadfast. I have instructed all our party branches across the country, if they pick you, please inform the headquarters. We shall respond with the lawyers. That's one. Number two, we know that this government will not be charitable to you, especially if you're saying the truth. Because what we are saying is what, for us, we want to stick to what is hurting Ugandans. This country is a negotiated country, by the way. It is not yet a nation. Now, the disruption caused by Museveni and the rest and other presidents, disrupted it from being a nation. We thought that when this country was negotiated by the 14 nations agreed to come together, we would then begin placing tenets and blocks to create a nation. Now, whatever this government is doing, in our view, is disrupting that process. We are tired of, we were in our conference, the conference when we were still a pressure group. A person from Kigezi, actually was a Muchiga from Kigezi, was walking to go and speak. And a guy from Karamoja said, don't you see them? You see their cheeks.
Wait. I think I need to understand this. When you say that one is a Muchiga, is that tribal, right?
Sorry?
If you say, say Muchiga or see Muganda, is that a tribal statement?
I am a Japadola, for example.
Yes,
am I tribal?
I don't know. If I say, look at that Jap, is that a tribal statement?
Well, let's not go into the definition, but me, I'm narrating to you. I'm narrating to you. We want, and my origin of the discussion is that we are trying to uproot that which you want to call the derogative part of what you want to mention.
Not the
that this guy,
but
this guy stood and was going to speak, and the Karamojong said, "Don't you see them? You see how they are looking. You see their cheeks. Those are the cheeks of people who are stealing our cows." Now, I told you here a story where I was coming from Tororo, and I gave somebody a lift when we go to Iganga, a certain nice car. It was a Lexus. I passed us, but because I was driving, and these old cars for us in opposition drive, the guy said, "Hey man, by 6 o'clock that one will be in Barara," and it was around 3. I asked him, "You mean you know the car?" He said, "Ah man, you're this serious. Other than those people, who else can afford that kind of car?" And those people he had already summarized. So for us in need, we are saying, we must deliberately undertake steps where a person from Lugwara, West Nile, does not begin suspecting or collectively blame a person from Buganda or from Ankole or from Busoga because of merely where he comes from. We must put conditions where every Ugandan feels is a Ugandan.
Okay.
Now, so this kind of, because for us we are talking against, that's why we are talking against it. Unfortunately, who are talking against it are the ones being locked up. Those who are practicing it are locking us up.
Actually, that's why I'd ask the other question. That when you say, look at this Muchiga.
You see, me and you are Muslims. Me and you are Muslims. In the Quran, there's one of the ayah that God says, "I created you differently. I created because so that you know each other." It is not a mistake. So that you know each other. So that by the time I mention my name, you will know, you see me when we are in that, for example, if we were all president in that summit of dictators, you see me, you know I'm from Africa. I mention my name, you will know that I am from somewhere in Uganda, and it's certainly plus in Uganda. But you see, those ones only help us to identify ourselves. But the feeling and the way we treat our people must be able to make all our people be Ugandan. That's what this government has failed to do. That is why our own party is called National Economic Empowerment and Dialogue. Mark the word economic empowerment and then the dialogue one. We think that part of what is impeding these processes is poverty. And yet this country is not one of the countries that should be have poor people. The country, the paradox is the country is extremely rich.
With very poor people.
Extremely rich with extremely poor people. And what is the problem? Leadership.
Thank you so much. Well, now I want to switch to Mr. Namakajjo Derrick. You are in a new marriage. You seem to be in a new marriage.
They are entering.
If they're entering in
the Mawa and Museveni started like that.
A new marriage with a ruling party.
Sorry.
No problem.
You seem to be in a new marriage with a ruling party in Kenya, and of which the party seems to be so close to the ruling party
Can
here.
I say something? Oh, sorry. Oh. It is maybe they are entering into a polygamous marriage.
Yes. Now, we need to understand this kind of relationship. The person, no, not the person, the group you're getting so closer to, it's so close, we presume, it's so close to the ruling party here. Now, we need to understand that kind of relationship now.
You know, you've concluded with the word presume.
I had to.
There are certain presumptions, not until
Proven.
The author comes in to confirm the presumptions that they're no longer presumptions. I believe the reason as to why it is me to talk about JEEMA intending, as you say, intending to enter marriage, which I don't think is a marriage, rather it is a partnership.
Okay.
A working partnership with UDA is because I can authoritatively say that it is not a presumption. So I will not ideally talk about the presumption marriage between UDA and NRM because I don't know that it exists.
You don't know about JEEMA and UDA?
Well, what I understand better is that UDA, the United Democratic Alliance, is the ruling party in Kenya. For that authoritatively I can state. And one of the few
You're now
concepts,
speaking like a lawyer.
No, because that's because we have to disseminate information for people to understand.
That man looking at you is a lawyer.
So internationally, we have a concept and a principle I believe in that we have what we call recognition of state and recognition of government. Kenya is already a recognized state.
And so Uganda.
And so Uganda. UDA is a government, a party new leadership of Kenya. And likewise NRM, likewise JEEMA, recognized political party in opposition. UDA or any other political party has a right to go and sit on a round table and dialogue and also enter into a working partnership with UDA as a sign of recognition of a government. To me, I would say that I recognize UDA as a government of Kenya. I don't know to you whether it is not a government of Kenya.
I'm the host. I'm not asking questions.
I know. So, our visit to Kenya, one, it is not to look for a register of marriage of Kenya, to come and help us maybe at a later time consummate our marriage. Rather, we went to Kenya to look, to benchmark. One, you people wait, Ruto, you were in opposition, however much you were in the government. How did you make it in a few months to be a success? We have to accept that Ruto laid a case for others to read. In Uganda, we had one of the, right now, the leading opposition party, which is the Nationality Platform. When it was formulated, established, went and came up with the momentum perhaps it had, it wasn't victorious in taking over power. Rather, to some people, I could say that it was victorious for becoming the leading opposition. But unlike in Kenya, one of the opposition political parties, new baby, managed to take power. So that is a case. I mean that is a case study. So if any opposition political party, and also I believe that even my brother here is seated here, but he might say, how did they do it? And for you to know how are they able to achieve power, you have to trek and go talk to them, dialogue. How did you? So our main concern was benchmarking. And we are still doing so. Two is now since you're into power, now you're in the government, what other steps are you having to ensure that you're bringing youths within Kenya to integrate them and empower them into various leadership skills, training centers, incubation centers, and leadership positions? And I assure you that I was too surprised and not surprised in dismay, but surprised in happiness. That the moment I landed at the Secretariat of UDA, from the top leadership, apart from maybe the Executive Director of UDA and the Secretary General, but other directorates don't go beyond 40 years. One of the programs officer was
Is it a preset condition or it's by coincidence?
No,
that's how it is?
That is leadership now. It is not by coincidence, it is not a preset condition, but the more we have transition, peaceful transition of power, the reason as to why all political parties here are longing for a peaceful transition of power, the first thing that comes along with peaceful transition of power comes along with integration of age difference.
Okay.
The moment you're seeing that JEEMA has taken over power, has taken over the government, now it is the ruling party, expect to seeing new young faces being integrated with the old faces.
Well, Namakajjo, we seem to be running out of time, but we need to understand this. Now, you know, JEEMA, you last fronted a presidential candidate in 2011, and now you're taking steps to benchmark from a party that has a new party that has just taken over power. Should we expect to see JEEMA in the State House after that benchmark?
Actually, there is no benchmarking targeting someone to remain in the status he or she is in. The reason as to why we benchmark is us to see how better we have to progress.
If we are all alive, I will bring you back in that same set to give accountability.
And that's why I'm saying that the reason as to why we are benchmarking is to see how better we can first progress. And to answer your question is, expect JEEMA not to remain the same in line of performance. It can be either in parliamentary system, it can be on the presidential level. But what I can authoritatively say is our benchmarking is targeting progressing towards taking over power from the ruling party, NRM. And how to take over power, that is the progressing I'm talking about. I'm seeing my brother is laughing.
Yes, he's enjoying
but
it.
progressing, taking over power. I don't know whether he's laughing that for them they're not progressing towards taking over power. you know, today I'm happy that I'm at least seated with the aspirants of Luzira, yet candidates of Luzira prison. So as of now, we are still aspirants, but towards progressing, taking over power. If you're not an aspirant of Luzira prison, then you're going nowhere.
Okay. Well, I think I should just get done with you for good. I should get your last shot and then switch to this gentleman to also do the same because we really need to get out of here.
Okay, yeah, so, but generally in brief, as an individual, let me sum it up with this particular paragraph in one of the books. You know, Africans don't want to read. If you read a book called known as From Democracy to Dictatorship, one of the paragraph there in chapter 2 says that there was a man in a certain state who used to look care of various monkeys, and he or she could wake up and every morning to command those monkeys to go and gather fruits from the forest. If you come back without fruits, then you're a victim of flogging. So one time, the youngest monkey asked the oldest monkey, that does this man own this forest? No. And does this man own these fruits? No. What happens if we don't take these fruits to him? And also what happens if we pick these fruits and we eat them for ourselves? So that question made all the remaining monkeys to start thinking of what will happen, because the forest doesn't belong to this old man. So one night, this old man was just sleeping, snoring, and all these monkeys woke up one morning, went to the granaries, took over the fruits, and also went to the forest and picked all the fruits from the forest. So this man, when he woke up, couldn't see any fruit in the granary, couldn't look for any monkey at the home and in the forest. The man died of hunger after like some 3 days. Why am I bringing that story is that the forest is the Uganda. And perhaps the would-be monkeys in that book might be me or you, or even my brother Odaka here. We might end up being the monkeys. And we are victims of giving answers to our young siblings or children that this forest, the Uganda, belongs to who? And if we come up one morning and we realize that we can own all these fruits and the forest, then we might see one old man dying of hunger.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bwana Namakajjo Derrick. Yes, Bwana Odaka Asuman Marjan of Tororo. I just need to get your parting shot and then we'll call it a day.
Well, for me, I want to thank for the time, for the last 2.5 weeks, we've been, I don't want to say headless, but our president was abducted and eventually arrested when he was with the abductors, and then was taken to Zira, and we went through some kind of turbulence. But during that period, we got a lot of solidarity from our friends, especially those in the opposition. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the FDC, that solidarity we got from Lord Mayor, Salam Musumba, among others. We got our friends from the Unity platform, actually one of the MP, him and me, that's Vadi Mweza and me, are the ones that stood surety for our president. We don't take that for granted. From the JEEMA, our sister party, the solidarity was represented by your president himself, Basalira, who came stood with us and was even part of the legal team. And among others, DP, Honorable Mukaku, CP. So we got so many. So for me, as Secretary General, I want to officially thank all those friends of ours. I want to thank Ugandans for speaking very loud, because the intention was to keep Kabuleta, it seems, much longer than they thought. They underestimated, part of all, need, but they also underestimated the capacity of need to have friends. So it is those friends, the noise from you, the media, the noise from every Ugandan that eventually pressured up. Pressure and concerted effort work, especially against dictatorship. For me, I want to finish by calling on that experiment must become a norm amongst us members in the opposition. That there are certainly cross-cutting issues for which we must begin a conversation on how to confront the oppressor.
Thank you so much, Bwana Odaka. And of course, the team I have worked with, thank you for putting this together. For all our viewers, Busi Deko, you're like Tuli Busi Kuchizinga, it's where you're watching us from. Please, thank you for being part of this. And all of you who, from wherever you're watching, I want to thank you for always following us and the team I have worked with in the studios here, in the control room, and of course, the production team for putting this together. I thank you, and this brings us to the end of tonight's edition of the Hotline Show. Until next Monday again, my name is Abdelatif, and have a lovely night.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.